The worst government contracting strategy I've ever heard of is something called middleman. This is not a strategy for success. I think it's a terrible business model. In this video, I'm going to tell you where middleman can work, why, for the most part, you just want to avoid it. Honestly, even where it does work, I would still avoid it, and what can work. So we're going to talk a little bit about what can generate income for you, for your business right now, immediately, versus this middleman strategy, if you even want to call it that. Hey, my name is Rick Howard. I'm a former government procurement officer. I managed over $82 billion in contracts for the U.S. Air Force before retiring in 2019, then started GovClose, my consulting business, more of a white glove agency where we help businesses sell to the government, and more recently, our training program. And our training program is focused on training essentially an army of sales executives for public sector sales. It's an extremely lucrative profession. It's also an extremely lucrative consulting profession. So consultants that help companies sell to the government. Now, there's a lot of specifics about that. We will get into all of it today. But now let's just talk about what you're all here for. First, what is middleman and why can I not stand hearing about this? Well, government contracting, amazingly complex due to about 200 years of the government making policies to make the way the government purchases fair. But government contracting can be extremely lucrative. The U.S. government is the biggest purchaser of goods and services in the world, and less than 1% of small businesses actually sell to the government. So now that we got that out of the way, middleman. When companies and people in general are trying to figure out what government contracting is and how to do it, there are a lot of resources. There are government websites. There are individual consulting websites. There are even master degrees programs you can go to for government contract law, for instance. There is a lot of information out there, but it tends to be very confusing about what is the actual process? How can your company sell to the government? And further misguiding people, confusing the situation, is the enormous amount of middleman, I'll use air quotes, middleman social media that's out there. Now, first of all, I don't want to characterize everybody talking about middleman like they don't know what they're talking about, because there are some social media people out there that are very smart and know exactly what they're doing. But there are others who I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they don't know what they don't know. They know enough. I did an episode on this where Neil deGrasse Tyson is on the cover, or the thumbnail, you can take a look at that. But you know enough to think you're right, but not enough to know you're wrong. So that's where this middleman strategy comes in. And essentially what's being promoted out there, this false notion that a middleman is somebody who can basically war dog government contracts. If you ever saw the movie War Dogs, meaning you go to sam.gov, it used to be FedDizOps, now it's sam.gov, you find a solicitation, then you go out and you find a company that can do the work. And then the middleman would write a proposal to the government and win the contract, but they don't have to do the work, according to these gurus. They have the subcontractor that they found do the work. So in essence, they're middlemaning the contract. Okay, now let's talk about the problem with trying to sell to the government that way. And the reason I'm doing this video is I am doing consultations every single day. I get an enormous flood of leads coming in, companies that want to sell to the government, want to improve what they're doing, but also like people that are frustrated because they've been watching this middleman nonsense. I'm going to call it nonsense. And they want to know, hey, they've wasted their time, they've wasted their money. What's the actual truth? Selling to the government, as I mentioned earlier, is complex. And what most people miss, the reason so few companies actually consistently sell to the government, is because they're unaware of the first phase of government contracting, or I should say the phase that comes prior to the solicitation coming out, which is called the market research phase. This is where a government office has money and a requirement to put something on contract. Any of the things we just talked about and thousands of other things. So the government has to buy something, but now they have to decide what's going to go into the solicitation. What are the specifics of the solicitation? If it's accounting services, should they have a requirement for the people that are going to be hired to have a CPA certification? If it's a landscaping service, should they use environmentally friendly fuel? All of this stuff needs to be decided most people that are in this space, professionals that are selling to the government, big companies, small companies that have figured this out, they live in the market research phase. In fact, most of them would laugh at you if you talked to them about finding a solicitation and just writing a proposal. Most would consider that a waste of time. Now, can you write a proposal on a solicitation and win that contract without doing any prior work? Yes, you can, but it's very difficult to do. Now, every industry is different, meaning if you're selling services or you're selling products or you're developing a new technology, all these things are bought in different ways from the government. But to keep it simple, you can win a contract with the government. That way, but it's very rare. And it's almost impossible in some industries versus others. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But let's just take this concept of middleman. The middleman is starting at the solicitation. So first and foremost, I don't even let my clients write a proposal on a solicitation unless they've worked it 6 months prior, meaning they found the opportunity early. Whether it was a sources sought, acquisitions forecast, or meeting with the government, we're learning about what they actually have to put on contract. All the work, like almost all of the work in winning that contract happens before the solicitation. It's only when the solicitation comes out that you officially write a proposal. By the way, when I sold for other companies, when I was the one selling for one company in particular, I don't think I ever wrote a proposal for a solicitation. I sold millions of dollars in software services. It was all because what I call existing customer upsell. It's much easier to sell to the government if you've already sold to them. We'll cover that in another episode, but just know this, the government buys things in a lot of different ways. They can compete, meaning a solicitation comes out that everyone can bid on. You have a competed action. The government can give sole source contracts. The government has large government-wide contracts, GWACs. They have GSA schedules, some of them use. So there's a lot of different ways the government can buy, but you need to learn how the government buys what you sell. Now, this middleman strategy that finds the solicitation when it comes out, they're already behind the power curve because most of the people that know what they're doing have already been engaging with the government prior. In fact, one of the biggest complaints, and you may fall into this category, I put this in the conspiracy theorist category, but I can see how some companies come to this conclusion is they see a solicitation come out and it looks like it was written for their competitor. All right. And then they write a proposal and they don't win. And then they see that their competitor won. And then maybe they go through this 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times. They don't win a single thing. They can see their competitors, though, keep winning. And it looks like these contracts are written for them. So it's all rigged, right? It's all rigged. The government's corrupt. I'm never going to win. Well, it's not rigged. What you don't understand is that the market research phase happens before the solicitation comes out. This is the only phase where the government can talk to these companies and not create grounds for a protest. So if I want to meet with the government, let's say a solicitation comes out and it's for accounting services. If I want to meet with the government and ask them questions, talk about what my firm does, well, they are most likely not going to meet with me and only answer questions if they put it out in public where everybody can see it. Because once that solicitation comes out, it could be seen as favoritism if they're talking to different companies. But before the solicitation comes out, it's almost incumbent upon the government office to talk to these businesses. So when I was putting companies on contract for the government, before the solicitation comes out, you want those companies to talk to the government. I would need to talk to, because I'm not an accountant, right? I'm a program manager. I know how to put things on contract for the government. I'm retired now, so I'm not doing that anymore. But I would need to talk to the experts, and those are the companies that actually do the work. So I would have to talk to them. And sometimes I'd put out a sources sought and they would reply and then we could take that information. But the savvy companies were making appointments with the office to come in and give presentations. This is why sometimes it looks like a solicitation is written, meaning an RFP, a request for proposal, a request for quote. Sometimes it looks like it's written for your competitor because your competitor found out about the opportunity 6 months earlier. Maybe they responded to an RFI or a sources sought. They scheduled a meeting with the office. They gave their presentations. They're helping the government. They're telling them, look, if you put the solicitation out, we find, because we've done a lot of this work in the past, that you should have these requirements in here, that you should have a CPA certification, that this should be classified or unclassified. It should be on this network, that it takes this many people to do the job. When a company is suggesting these details, they are potentially eliminating the competition. So if I'm a landscaping company and I suggest during the market research phase to the government that they should put an environmentally friendly fuel requirement into the contract, or that special machines need to be used. Maybe I have this really expensive, eco-friendly landscaping machine that I'm using. Well, if I get that written into the solicitation, any landscaping company now that is going to write a proposal when the solicitation comes up, they're all eliminated unless they have that environmentally friendly machine that I was talking about. So this is just a made up example of how you can have the government insert things into the solicitation if the government thinks it's in the government's best interest, and that can help narrow the playing field. It can help eliminate some of your competition. This is also where the government figures out whether to put contracts or set contracts. This is also where the government figures out if they should set a contract aside for a woman-owned small business or a SDVOSB or an 8A. These are all certifications you can get, and the government is required to set a certain amount of contracts aside for small businesses, for woman-owned small businesses, 8A, HubZone, SDVOSB. Those standards are set by the SBA. I've done other videos on that. You could check it out. But my point is the government needs a place in time to be able to figure out if enough companies can actually compete to be able to set it aside for small business. Does it make sense? Or do they have to make it available to the primes and the big defense contractors, big government contractors? This all takes place in the market research phase. And I'm going into detail here because it is so important that you understand that this exists. This is where you make your money. This is where you could sell to the government where there may not even be a competition. This is where you could find out if you should not even compete because it's a waste of your time. There's already an incumbent and the government's happy with them. You have to do your homework. There's a lot of work that goes into government contracting. So government contracting is not easy. It is hard. It takes a long time, 6 to 18 months to win a contract with the government and to actually start getting paid. Okay, and it can take longer than that. Can it be faster? Yes, there's always rare examples. Why is the middleman strategy BS? For one, it totally disregards the most essential phase of government contracting for you, the business owner, or you, the salesperson, which is the market research phase. Two, there's no such thing as a middleman in government contracting. It doesn't exist. The language does not exist. You're either a prime or you are a subcontractor. So the first problem with middleman is that the odds of you winning contracts is so low that you would have to generate an enormous amount of proposals on solicitations coming out to even have a shot at winning some of these. That's one. But number two, you're not a middleman. You're a prime contractor, which means you watching this are responsible to the government for it, whatever they put you on contract for. So if you do manage to middleman a contract this way, it's not just set it and forget it. If you win a $100,000 landscaping contract and you get a landscaping subcontractor to do the work, I just want to go through what this could look like for you. First of all, you would probably have to write 20 to 50 proposals on solicitations coming out just to have a shot at winning one. But let's just say you go through all of that work, which is a lot of work. You go through all of that work and you win one. And let's say it's a $100,000 landscaping contract. First, now you are responsible to the government to actually make those landscaping services happen. So let's say it's a year-long contract. Well, now you need to make sure that the subcontractor that you're hiring actually shows up and does the work. And guess who they're calling when they don't? You. So you got this is not like you're just going to be sitting back, not doing anything. You are going to have to talk to the government, make sure that they're happy. You're going to be the one they complain to. You're going to make sure that sub does the work. And if they don't do the work, it's on you, not them. Now you got to go find somebody else to do the work. What if you bid too low? You could be losing money. And if you bid too low, guess who's the one that's going to have to pay the price? That's you. You got to make a profit on this. Now, here, let's talk about profit. You don't make $100,000. If you win a $100,000 contract and you are paying a subcontractor to do the work, how much of that do you actually think is profit in your pocket? Maybe 10 grand if you're lucky. So maybe 10 grand if you're lucky for the year. Is it really worth? You got to ask yourself, is it worth $10,000 for you to be on the hook to the government for a year, making sure this landscaping company is actually doing the work, which could be a huge pain, and you don't get paid right away? You have to invoice the government. So you might have to pay that landscaper out of pocket and then collect from the government. That could take 30, 60 days, really easy, every time you bill the government. So is that worth $10,000 to you. Now, I can tell you, for me, that is not worth $10,000. In fact, you couldn't pay me $500,000 for that nonsense to go on. Seriously, like if it was $500,000, even if $100,000 was profit, I still wouldn't do it. Like, that is a huge pain in the butt. I don't want anything to do with that. So what we just talked about, writing 20 to 50 proposals on a solicitation, having to go out and find subcontractors that could do the work. Then you, because you're the prime, you're not a middleman. Middleman doesn't exist. Now you are on contract with the government. You have to make sure everything happens, make sure the government's happy, which can be difficult. And you got to make sure the landscaping company's doing their work, which also can be difficult. And you've got to pay them out of pocket, most likely, and invoice the government. And you have to adhere to all the government's policies and procedures for that one contract. You've spent so much time trying to win this contract, which you probably wouldn't have won anyway. Let's be frank, because this strategy is pretty bad. But even for those that can make it work, I hate this as a business model. It is a terrible business model. Like, why put yourself through that? So what I'm trying to do is prevent you from making a big mistake. Where is middleman? Where can this actually make sense? This makes sense for government opportunities that don't spend much time or that don't utilize the market research phase so much. And what I mean by that is mainly commodities, low dollar commodities. And I got a thumbs up. That should be a thumbs down, because yeah, there we go. Because I don't like low dollar commodities. I don't want to sell toilet paper, but you might. Some companies make a lot of money doing that. So if you want to, by the way, you're still not a middleman. If you're selling toilet paper, if you're selling padlocks, if you're selling, you pick the item, the low cost item to the shaving cream. What you actually are is a reseller. And resellers are a real thing. How do you do that? Well, you may be in a position where you just have to write a lot of proposals on solicitations, but those come down usually to price. Okay, so in order to make that work, it's still not set it and forget it. The GovClose certification is generating tremendous results. So 27 years old, you've never worked in government contracting, you've never worked as a consultant, and you just closed your first deal, is that correct?
That's fair. And I've got a couple small projects on the side as well. So definitely probably my best investment I've made all year.
It would be my second post on how a cold call landed a 9-figure government contract. My name's Gavin Tice.
So my name is Ethan Mart. When I was able to enroll into the GovClose program, it just exceeded all my expectations and really has provided a lot of valuable learnings and insights that I would not have found on my own.
I was able to get a consulting gig with a software company that currently works with the intelligence community. Hi, I'm Deb Diller-Harris.
If you want to learn how to sell to the government, if you want to learn how to start your own consulting business, if you want to learn the skills that you need to go land a 6-figure plus account executive job with big companies selling to the government, the certification program is for you. Head on over to govclose.com. Check out our certification program. Talk to the team. You won't regret it. You need to negotiate a price with the actual manufacturer of these items, and usually they'll give you a discount if you're serious, you have government contracts, etc. But the only way to be really competitive and squeeze a little bit of profit into something like this is by negotiating with these manufacturers, having agreements in place. These are legitimate businesses, okay? So I don't want to, and by the way, I also occasionally get a message from someone who's actually a reseller and uses a method like this and does really well. So I will say there's a small place for this. Look, I'm biased. I don't like selling products. I don't want to sell products. I think that the margins are way too low, and the ass pain. And here's the thing. It is a pain in the ass to sell to the government. That's why it can be so lucrative, is because all of the hoops you have to jump through, all the paperwork, understanding the process, the time it takes, some of the longest timelines selling to the government. This is a tough business. So why am I in it? And why do I have this channel? Because I think if you have a solid business already, you are already selling commercially, meaning you don't have to depend on the government for your revenue stream. This is true for most businesses, not all of them, but if you have a amazing service. Let's say, go back to landscaping, all right? You have an amazing landscaping service and you're doing $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, $1 million a year in revenue. That's coming in. You have customers. You can prove to the government that you know how to do the work. You have revenue coming in. So you can actually put a sales guy part-time on a government pipeline, and you can take the 6 to 12 months, 18 months to start winning some of these contracts. Now, what you're introducing, this B2G revenue, now you could be introducing, I use the example, I think, of a 1-year contract in the beginning, but often you'll see 2, 3-year contracts. You'll see contracts with option years. So if you have multi-year contracts with the government for providing, say, a service, this can add a lot of stability to your company, a lot of revenue to your company that you didn't have before. And as long as you have the team, you have the proven track record, now you can make something like this work and you can scale it and you can turn a small business into a large business. Okay, so there's absolutely a place for selling to the government. But as a general rule, what I recommend is that you are approaching it as either a prime or a subcontractor. You have a business first. You're not creating a business. You're not creating a middleman business, because the government's not stupid. And I want to be clear. I'm giving a lot of my own personal opinions as well, but I've been in this business for a long time. I've been in it as a consultant. I've been in it as a account executive for a big software company. And I think most importantly, I was a procurement officer and spent 20 years in the Air Force and have a very intimate knowledge of what this process looks like on all sides. On the government side, on the sales side, on the consulting side. I'm telling you, this is something you approach as a successful business owner already. You can be a small business and make great strides with the government. Make sure you have revenue coming in before you attempt this. That's my recommendation to the business owners out there. Now, if you want to start a business, or if you've been thinking about this middleman strategy and now you're like, oh, Rick just blew up my middleman dreams. I'm not going to be a middleman government guy anymore. Look, first of all, I'm not here to smash your dreams. I'm here to save you a lot of time and money. Okay. That is a hard road. And what I recommend you do is either take advantage of the second half of my business. So the first half is consulting. The other side is training. But I can tell you right now that when I started getting, and this is just a personal story, right? So I was working, 2019, end of 2019, started my business. COVID hit, working with businesses, helping them sell to the government. I was only working with companies and helping them sell to the government. It was really great. We were showing a lot of great results. Now, one of the things we did is we started a podcast. And my assistant, and by the way, anyone with a business, starting a business, once you can afford an assistant, a virtual assistant, highly recommend you do. Like, it's absolutely like the best thing that I pay for. But my assistant started taking my podcast and posting it on YouTube. And I didn't think much of it. We never got many views, even by, even today, I mean, by most people's standards, we have a very small YouTube channel. But as the channel started growing in popularity, what I started getting were a lot of people interested in starting a government contracting business that didn't have a business. So this was a new demographic. This was veterans, people retiring from the military that wanted to start a government contracting business because they saw these middleman videos, or people that wanted a career change and they were going to start a government contracting business, or they just wanted to do something different. They wanted to start a business. They wanted to work as a consultant. They wanted to do something. And for those people, what I told them is, look, I can't in good faith tell you that you could start a government contracting business and have revenue coming in if you don't have a business already, right? If somebody came to me on the government side and said, hey, I'm a middleman. I own a government contracting business and I'll just match your landscaping solicitation with a landscaping company, and I'll match your accounting thing with an accounting company. I would laugh you out of the office. In fact, you'd never make it into my office because you don't have a business. Like, it's hard enough to sell to the government if you have a business and past performance, because winning your first contract is one of the hardest things you could do in the government, because you need your past performance helps you win more contracts. It's a catch-22 of government contracting. And I think we're going to do an episode just on that. But not having any credibility for selling to the government it makes things incredibly difficult for you, right? Now, but what you can do, right, And by the way, this still goes for, let's say you worked for another company as a program manager for 20 years. Well, hey, I worked for this company for 20 years as a program manager. I'm going to start a company that sells program management services to the government. Eventually, you might win something, but it's going to be extremely difficult and an uphill battle because you didn't own the company providing those program management services. There's a big difference between being a program manager for, or doing anything for another company and you actually owning the business and the buck stopping with you. I want to see a company that has successfully done whatever it is I need them to. I want to absolutely, at a minimum, ensure they've done it commercially successfully multiple times. And then we can look at the government side. Like, okay, is this their first time? Can I take a chance on this company? But what do I do with all these people that have been coming to me? Well, what I tell them is, look, I can teach you the government contracting process, the actual process, and some of which we've discussed here. And I can show you how to do the following things with it and generate immediate results. One, I can teach you how to start a consulting business. So the people going through our courses are generating crazy results. And by the way, I shouldn't even call it a course. I have a certification program. So this is how our certification program came about. You don't have to go through that. I'm just telling you what we do, what we train people to do. But you can just use what I'm telling you and start your own consulting business. Potentially, the other option is you could learn the government contracting process and work as a sales executive or an account executive for a big company or medium-sized company that's already selling to the government. Those are wickedly lucrative positions. You just have to find the right ones. But let me just walk you through the process, right? So you're thinking government contracting, maybe you've been watching some videos. Now, what you would do if you were in our certification program is you'd go through our on-demand training, which shows you the process. This is how you sell to the government. This is how you identify the exact office that buys. So for whatever industry, right? Because if you're a consultant, you have to be able to help anyone. So whether it's a software company or a drone manufacturer or an accounting company or somebody selling documentary film services, you need to be able to see, does the government buy this? In all of its public, does the government buy it? Which office in the government actually buys it? How do they buy it? How much can a small business make selling this? Are there specific contract vehicles? Like, what are the steps? Because we could see exactly. We don't have to guess. Who are your competitors? What are they making? Is there a niche here? We can also see competition. How competitive is it? Are they getting 140 proposals per solicitation? Or are they getting 2? And often with a simple adjustment, we can focus on the niche where the government's only getting 2 or 3 offers in or none. So we can be very focused. And the consultants or the people going through our program that eventually become consultants need to be able to understand that data. So you go through, you learn how to look at that data, how to form a sales plan, which you can also sell to companies. And then you learn about the advanced sales strategies. And there's a lot of them. So does the government buy what you sell? Build out the sales plan. And then we go through, okay, these different strategies that we're identifying by looking at the data, right? You can see how much work goes into this. So now we focus on the different sales strategies. And there's a lot of them, right? Subcontracting, using GWAX, GSA. Every industry is different, but you want to learn enough about these to be able to advise a company on the right path. What about SBIR for tech companies that are developing software? Other transaction authority. There's a lot of, the field of government contracting is immense, but what we do is we teach people to be focused, how to go through the steps, how to sell, the advanced sales strategies, and then how to build a pipeline. How do we build and manage a pipeline of leads with the government? Because it's different than selling B2B. There are different steps involved and it takes a long time. And by the end of this, we walk them through how to start an actual consulting business, which is what I've done for the past 5 years. So now let's compare these two models. You already know about Middleman, right? 6, 12, 18 months are a huge pain in the butt to even try to win one contract. And even when you do, low margins. I mean, you're looking 6 to 18 months to get paid for anything. Consulting, on the other hand, you're selling to the businesses, not to the government. Now, I have students closing deals before they even graduate the program. And the reason for that is I can sell to a business in a day. At this point, I have a huge client base and I have leads coming in. So I could get on the phone, talk to a business, but they can make the decision. This is the point. Once you're talking to the decision maker, they can decide today to pay you. And a business can afford to pay you high ticket. This is all high ticket. So that $10,000, for instance, that took you an entire year to make with your landscaping middleman contract, for me in consulting, first of all, I could sell it in a day, get paid that same week, and we're talking about a project. I might put a sales plan together for them for that. So that's the type of thing you're selling as a consultant. So Option one, way better. If you're like in the middleman category, if you're in the I want to start a government contracting business category, my advice to you is forget that and you want to become a consultant, a freelancer, working these projects with companies. It's high end. The pay is great. It's what they would call high ticket, but you're not charging by the hour. We teach people to charge by the job. And this is something where you can very easily scale 200, 300, 400, $500,000 a year by yourself, maybe with a VA. Getting past that, that's a different conversation. Now we're talking about hiring people, and that is a business model that works. It is a lot of work. None of this is easy. Consulting's not easy either. It takes a lot of work. Point is, people are getting results. Everyone going, I think we have 70 people in our program right now, and they're killing it. They're killing it. I have 20 kids in their 20s. I say kids because I'm almost 50. I have kids in their 20s that have never consulted before, and they go through our program. I certify them. It's a rigorous program, by the way. It's not just on-demand courses. You have to put sales plans together and roadmaps. You have to put a pipeline together. I review everything, and I usually send it back. So if you are thinking about our certification program, just know that not for the faint of heart, but it's generating results. And the people that follow the steps get those results. Same individual, by the way, just got hired for a big company as their government contract sales executive. So they're getting these jobs in companies. They're closing deals. I'm working with them on deals, right? As people are getting certified. Now we're producing, I should say we're filling a hole in the market. Most people, and you're probably watching this because you don't quite understand it, most people just don't understand how to sell to the government. Some of the biggest companies just can't crack the nut. They can't figure it out because there's no real training out there. You don't, and by the way, I don't want, if you happen to be one of these guys or gals on YouTube or one of the social media channels and you're putting out content, I don't want, or maybe you love listening to those people. I don't want you to take this as a criticism of any particular individuals out there. Like I said, you have some really great people that are teaching, but you also have some individuals that maybe they won a contract or two, and now they're, putting themselves out there as an expert in government contracting. And this is not something you can become an expert in. This is something that takes years and years. I've been doing this for so long, and I would still tell you, I know wave tops and really deep in certain areas, but I know where to go to answer questions. And I know enough to know that I don't have all the answers. So for everything that I say, I'm sure we could pull up an example of someone that was successful, but I want you to understand how hard it's going to be for doing something like middleman or reselling or trying to sell to the government, especially if you don't have a business, versus something like consulting and freelancing. If you have the expertise and you can truly help someone, you can generate revenue very quickly and start scaling that up. And part of that is developing a niche, something you like to do, proposal writing, going after SBIRs, working with the GSA schedule. There's so many different places that you can work on. And the competition is going to be low because most people just don't understand it. And the amount you can charge is high because what you're doing directly correlates to companies making a lot of money. Like, this is the formula for selling. Like, how do I know if I'm going to have a business that makes money? If it's a service business, or even if it's a software or something, if you're selling something to a company and it helps them to make money directly, then that is something you can without a doubt charge for. If you're selling something to a company that doesn't correlate to them making money, but maybe makes things easier, you can still sell it. Plenty of great businesses that do that, but it's a harder sale. I know it's a harder sale because I've been doing it for so long. But if I go in and what my results, like let's say I put a sales plan together for a company and it shows them unequivocally, because I know the data, that the average small business in their industry selling to the government makes $2.4 million a year. You can't argue with that. Those are the facts. And you're also not going to be able to argue with who the top 3 people making those purchases are. Let's say it's for a woman-owned small business. I can show you the exact opposites and the people that have put those on contract. I can say without a doubt, hey, GSA is used for 20% of these purchases, or sole source contracting is 14%, but subcontracting is going to be your main way of going after these. We can see that in the data. We're providing them a plan that's based on facts, not on guessing, not on middlemaning, not on somebody else doing the work. We do the work. You're going to do the work. The other thing you can do is take that knowledge and go work for a company. And I think that's a great thing to do, especially if you're young. I would say, I don't want to be ageist, but if you're building a career or making a career switch, working for a big company in a government contracting A sales executive role is a great way to learn, and it's also it can be a great income. And these positions are usually a salary and a commission. Okay. So know that. So you can make a lot of money in one of these roles, and you can consult on the side. So for all the middlemen, let's just wrap it out. For anyone that wants to start a government contracting business that's thinking about middlemaning, almost always starting a consulting business is going to be a much better option. Middlemaning is, for most people, going to result in failure, loss of time, loss of money. And I don't want to see you do that. Okay. It would be better to focus on something else entirely. If you are interested in the consulting piece, getting training, going to work for business, go to govclose.com. You can check out our training program right there. I love our certification program, by the way. That's not for everybody. It's expensive and it's hard, right? So it's not something you can do in a couple of days. This is, like I said, it is rigorous, but you will be much better off at the end of it. But, you can check out our testimonials. We have a lot of videos too with our students that have gone through the program, and you can hear about what they're doing. If you're interested in learning more about consulting and what that looks like, check out the video that I'm putting a link to here, and you can get into it. You can learn from some of the students. You can also learn what the steps are that you would need to take if you want to learn more about GovCon, get into the consulting field, or get into the sales field. All right, take care.